Well, hello there. It's Yvonne from Women's Fitness Adventures. Thank you for joining me. Coming to you from a very wet day today, and the perfect time to talk to you about wet weather hiking and what that actually reveals about you as a hiker and what hiking in the rain will actually teach you about yourself, that being a fair weather hiker or hiking in perfect conditions only will never teach you. So, thanks for listening. Feel free to make comments alongside or share your own story. Um, and let's get started. So, we were hiking in the rain today. Rain, the thought of rain, the idea of rain, the looking at the weather radar will deter lots of hikers. And that's something that you need to determine for yourself. Hi, Sharon. But we know that when we go on multi-day hikes, that we can't, or anytime, we can't control the weather. But when we go on multi-day hikes, we've, invested a lot of time, we've invested money, we've invested, lots of energy, and we don't want to miss a day. There might be 3, 5, 7 or longer days. And if it rains for some of those and you decide that you don't want to hike in the rain, then you're going to miss out big time. So that's why we say it's always important to train in all different weather conditions if you can, depending where you live, of course, so that when it comes time for a multi-day hike, you've got that experience. We also say that you don't have to do the trail to do the trail. So you don't have to train the entire distance of a 5-day trail. You don't have to, every day back up with whatever your distance you're doing day after day after day. But you do need to train for conditions. And that's just not weather conditions. It's also what the terrain conditions are, what it's going to be like overnight in terms of temperature, what your sleeping conditions are, all those sorts of things as well. So today I'm going to talk about weather, but particularly hiking in the rain. And some of you who are regular watchers know that you have rain more than I do where I live, and probably have a load of experience in hiking in the rain. So I'd love for you to share your story. Before I do that, though, it's not just rain. I know that there are lots of people who don't hike in the heat, and sometimes the heat gets unbearable, and you have to know your body. And the only way to get to know your body is to train in different conditions. So when you hike in the heat, it's a very different feeling to where you're hiking in perfect conditions. So if you're someone who chooses not to hike in the Australian summer months because it's too hot, and then you end up on a multi-day hike somewhere in Europe in their summers are getting hotter. So I have seen it plenty of times where people don't train over summer, get to Europe and really feel fatigued and exhausted when the weather conditions are hotter than they anticipated and they hadn't trained in those conditions. So for hot weather, I would suggest that, find ways to train where it's warmer than perfect conditions, because it will make all the difference for a multi-day hike. But today I'm going to talk about wet weather hiking, and some of you come from wet weather locations more so than I do. So would love for you to share. Now, a disclaimer on this is that where I live, most of the time when it's raining, it is really hot. So today we started on our hike. We were the only ones on the mountain today. It was wet, it was cloudy, and we put our raincoats on. And it was too hot. Within about 15 minutes, we had those raincoats off, and it turned out that the rain wasn't that heavy, that yes, we got damp. And when we stopped at the end, we started to get cold. For us, it was 22 degrees. So that's still quite warm by most standards, but cold at the end when we finished. So, figuring out even that little bit on its own is a really important thing. So hi, Chris. Hi, Lethea. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Patricia. And hi, Leonie. So hiking in fair weather, in weather that's not too hot, Goldilocks weather, not too cold, is really comfortable and really awesome. And we really notice it when we get that kind of weather. But when we go hiking in the rain, or hiking in heat, but hiking in rain for today, it's really honest. We kind of in the dry, perfect conditions, the trail flatters us. It doesn't give us the challenges. It gives us literally those perfect conditions that we can just throw ourselves into and just, repeat foot after foot after foot. But in the rain, we learn to hike with different gear on. We might have a raincoat on, we might have overpants on. We learn to figure out what our gear actually does for us or doesn't do for us. How our body handles discomfort. If our gear isn't right, Does the water drip down the back of your pants? What do we do about that? How do I feel if my feet get soggy? How do I feel if my hair gets wet? And you can see, and plastered to my face. How do I feel that if my clothes are clinging to me because they're wet, but I'm still sweating on the inside? And how to figure out, hiking in the rain tells us whether our mindset is real. Like, are we a real hiker? Are we prepared to hike in different conditions? Or is it just a convenient mindset that hiking's great when the weather conditions are perfect and hiking sucks when it starts to rain or it gets too hot? So rain will strip away the performance of your hiking. It will bring back to bare bones and show you the actual hiker that you are. It's kind of like, if you think of it like a diamond, we shine under pressure. And the more we can vary those conditions in our training, the more enjoyable it's going to feel when we're out on a multi-day hike. So that's the first one. Fair weather hiking is comfortable, but rain hiking is actually really, really honest. Secondly, you will discover what you're made of when you hike in the rain. And if you, yes, Sharon, hi Sharon. Sharon learned that her boots need re-waterproofing, and so do mine. And we'll talk about gear in a moment. So at about the 45-minute mark, hiking in the rain will tell us what we're made of. And in the beginning, it's fun. Hey, look at me. I'm hiking in the rain. I got my gear on. And then you hike along. The novelty's worn off. You might be a little bit damp. You think, I've got another 2 hours of this. How am I going to manage for another 2 hours? And that's where your true character will show. So if you don't want your true character to show, if you're not happy with that rainy true character, then it's time to start doing some training in the rain. So if we push through that window of discomfort, we end up feeling really proud of ourselves when we've done a hike in the rain. And that feeling of discomfort, getting really uncomfortable till we get comfortable with the being uncomfortable, is something that you can't replicate when the weather is fair all the time. So many, many years ago, we've been going for, this is our 13th year now, 12th, 13th year, I can't really remember. We did a trip to Tasmania and a hike to Tasmania, and it was really, really, really wet. And we've done lots of hikes in Tasmania where it's been really wet. But on this particular occasion, so many things I can think of. This one had a little bit of camping because we were supposed to be in some remote places, and we ended up having to find some cabins because there was so much water everywhere that at night you couldn't really pitch a tent. It was that wet. But another time where we're trying to make our sandwiches on on a big rock that was there, and the rain was coming down, and trying to eat soggy bread sandwiches. But you could see those who were fair weather hikers, and you could see those who had that experience of hiking in the rain. And we laugh about it now. We laugh, remember that time, remember that time. Hiking in the rain also teaches us when the trail is there, of do we go around puddles or do we go through puddles? And we always say never sacrifice your body for a wet foot. So when we push through that discomfort of the first, 45, even 20 minutes of novelty wearing off, and push through the rest of the hike, provided it's not unsafe to do so, so no lightning or, anything, or high winds, then we've achieved a lot more. We've gone through that discomfort, a bit like the hero's journey, if you know that, and we've come out the other side feeling really proud and developed a whole lot of new skills on the way. So hello, Christine, and hello, Kim. Alethea says, any tips for your pack cover not covering side pouches? I plan to have a poncho over my raincoat as well. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk to gear. Okay, so just remind me if I haven't. Great questions. And hello, Lynn from Sumares Ponds. So hiking in the rain, and you can always flip this to summer as well. Hiking in the rain, or heat, I should say, will help us regulate our internal state, not the external conditions. So if the weather's good, always good, and we only go hiking in always good, then we get this kind of illusion that our enjoyment of the trail is dependent on the weather conditions. And we don't really want to be like that, because we can't control the weather conditions. And if we go on a multi-day hike and the weather conditions go sour, how do we if it's always linked, hiking is great when the weather's great. If it's always linked, does that mean we're setting ourselves up for disappointment? Um, Rain will break that. So when we hike in the rain, when women hike in the rain, and we had an absolute ball. We were not our big numbers this morning that we normally are because of the weather. But when we learn to hike in the rain, we kind of get our own little barometer going inside, and we know how to find our own rhythm on the trail, regardless of what's happening around us. Because our skills might change a little bit, but our hiking rhythm, our hiking patterns shouldn't change whatever the weather is. We might slow it down when it's warmer. We might slow it down when it's slipperier. But our rhythm of that foot in front of the other, when we pause, when we speed up, doesn't really change. Um, and the skills that we learn when we're hiking in the rain transfer directly to multi-day hiking adventures. So when you go to most places around the world, there's probably a rainy day somewhere in your multi-day hike. And if we haven't learnt how to hike in the rain, then that becomes a whole new challenge as well. So I really encourage you to do some of your training in the rain. So coming to your question, Alethea, our gear will reveal itself in the rain. And as Sharon said, she learnt her boots need re-waterproofing, and mine do too. So today in Queensland, shorts and a t-shirt is what we were hiking in. The rain was heavy, but not heavy enough to wear our raincoat. We were sweating more on the inside, so we took our raincoats off. We had our ankle gaiters on so that the rain wouldn't go down into our socks, and we had our pack covers on as well. We were on formed trails. We had a little bit of grass to walk across a picnic area, but it wasn't bush bashing or anything that it wasn't stomping through puddles or anything like that. So my boots got wet too, and my socks got wet. And when I got home for a shower, I literally had to pull those socks off because they were pretty much soaked through. So I had been thinking about how my boots would go in rain conditions because we don't have rain that often. So today was a great test. And I knew that not only the grip would be something that I would need to look at, this was a few weeks ago, for my upcoming hikes, but how was my waterproofness going on my shoes? So I found that out today. So I can re-waterproof those and, on fair days get away with those. But I think going forward, it's probably a new pair of boots for me, which is quite timely because the grip is starting to wear out as well. But inside my boots were my socks. Now they dry, but I often find that when people get black toenails, sometimes one of the reasons for that is we get moisture under the toenails. So if you stomp around in wet socks, the moisture gets underneath the toenail and can cause it to go black. So, switching out your socks if you're hiking in rain conditions is a good thing, or putting some talc in there or some hiker's wool or something like that to absorb the water. But also, we learnt where our raincoats work and don't, and testing those raincoats because, there's no sense, and I've heard lots and lots of stories of having a really flash raincoat and you've recently bought it and then you go on a hike and it rains and then the raincoat fails, like epic fail. I understand after 10 hours of torrential rain it may not hold up, but you want to be guaranteed that at least for a couple of hours that raincoat is going to keep you dry. So wearing and being able to test your raincoat in rain conditions is really, really important, and how that raincoat sits on you when you put your backpack on. So, you've immediately put another layer on. We always say do up our backpack on the hips because there's no organs underneath your hips, and your hips carry the weight of the pack, which reduces your shoulders, but also gives you that great center of gravity. So you're not pulling through your lower back. So when we put a raincoat on, automatically, even the most expensive raincoats, it creates a little slippery surface. So the pack tends to move around a little bit more on your hips. It doesn't sit as firm as it would on, say, your hiking pants or hiking shorts fabric. So automatically you've got something new that you're dealing with. And then if you wear rain pants, it feels like a little plastic fantastic. There's another little shuffle there because you're adding another layer and you've got this little bit of friction. So things tend to move around a bit. So getting used to walking in those, because it's very warm walking in rain pants as well. So we didn't need rain pants today. We all tested our raincoats and then went, this is too hot, and so we took them off and folded them up into the lid. So open up the lid of your backpack and just pop it under the lid, not in the drawstring bit, and then secure the lid back down. And it's really easy access on and off. Now, if you're using a pack cover, most of the day packs have built-in rain covers, and we suggest putting that on. There are very, very few that go over the side pockets. So for the side pockets, we always suggest that you put something in a Ziploc bag, especially if it's toilet paper or, business cards or whatever you might have in there, or a snack that you don't want to get wet. So just put things in there in Ziploc bags. There isn't any that I've seen that come over the straps over the side pockets, because that would just make it really difficult. Now, when it comes to ponchos, and I know for those doing the Camino, ponchos can be a great thing. So I have this view on ponchos, take it for what it is. So when we have done Iceland, you are not allowed to wear ponchos because the winds are too high. So a poncho will just and you'll be gone with it. And same with your pack cover, it needs to be able to be secured on, or wind will come and flick that away. And those winds can be quite strong. The other thing with ponchos is if you put it over your pack and you put it over you, automatically you're not able to see your feet. So we want to be able to see our feet when we're moving. So if you have a poncho, my suggestion would be to glam it up with your poncho and put it on, and then put your pack over the top so that you actually have the poncho underneath your pack. That way you can still get to your pockets and everything. You're not having to pull your hands out of the poncho having to lift up the poncho to get into your pockets or anything like that. I just think that is much better. The wind's not going to get it. You're going to be able to see your feet, and you're going to remain dry. What's in your pack should stay dry. You put your pack cover on. If you're really worried about your pack not being waterproof, then get yourself either a pack liner or a garbage bag that sits inside your pack, and you just put everything in there and roll it up. Dry bags are fantastic, but the more dry bags you have, the heavier your pack is going to be. So, think about those things when you're creating your pack. And, you can spend a whole lot on a poncho. And I think for some of the trails, you can buy branded, whatever this trail is, a branded poncho. You just want to make sure that the poncho is fit for purpose, and that it's actually going to keep you, dry and, you know, dry and do the job that it's supposed to do. So, we think about waterproofing as well, and our gear will need waterproofing. It will break down over time, whether you use it or not. So it's really important to get out and test the gear in all of these weather conditions. Fingers can get really cold in the rain. What it does if you're worried about your hair, look at mine today. All those sorts of things. Wearing a cap will stop the rain coming over your forehead, and then testing out, how the peak of your raincoat holds as well. When you put poles on in the rain and you hold them up above like that, water's going to come down the inside of your raincoat. So you can often confuse that with whether you're sweating or whether the rain is actually getting in. So a whole lot of things to think about, that hiking in the rain will actually teach you about yourself, how you respond, but about your gear as well. Now, one of the things when we were in Cosi last week is we did a beautiful hike to the Cascade Hut and back. And someone I know may have lost a pair of sunglasses on the way in. So on the way back, well, there were two of us, we were looking for those sunglasses, and we found one pair, not the other. There's a kangaroo somewhere down there running around with a pair of beautiful sunglasses on. But the trail looks very different on the way back. On the way down, we were focused on that way and these things and getting there. And on the way back, it looked very different. The same goes for the rain. The trail conditions look extremely different in the rain. And today was full of beautiful, rich greens of every shade, and the rust color of the trees that had lost their bark. And, the color of the soil and the trail was contrasting with the green of the leaves. And then the dark, foggy sky was really making for this kind of eerie but comforting environment that we were the only ones hiking in. So, really appreciate the sounds of the rain, the how the bush responds in the rain, how different sounds come out in the rain as well. And sometimes it's actually more rhythmic hiking in light rain. It wasn't torrential today, light rain, than it is in warm, fair weather. Um, and hiking in the rain gives you, if you're always training on the same trail, just gives you a different version of that trail as well. And say if you do use the same trail all the time for your training and it's only fair weather or warm weather, and then you go out in the rain, you'll get a whole lot of different views and a whole lot of different experiences, but you'll gain a whole lot of knowledge as well about how you respond to that trail in those conditions, which you wouldn't have had in the other one. Now, if you are hiking in the rain, and this has happened to me a lot with our multi-day adventures because we hike with a group, the group will actually pull closer together. The teamwork becomes much richer. The bonds become much stronger. There's chit chat, but there's a lot of support and encouragement when you hike in the rain. The tips, certainly in our groups, the tips flow a lot faster. So be mindful of that. Don't stand on that log that way, all those sorts of things. And it's an experience that you all have together, whereas because it's teaching you different things in the rain, whereas when you're just fair weather every normal conditions kind of hiker, you are not going through that same experience, that same learning experience as well. And the confidence carryover is real because when we've hiked in the rain, we've learnt what our boots feel like. That's very different to the trail in a great day of hiking, a beautiful sunshine. We've learnt, how the feet slip or don't slip. We've learnt, not that we ever suggest you do, what it feels like to put a foot on a slippery tree root. We've learnt where the gaiters need to go. We've learnt how the pack needs to fit, how getting the pack on and off, how to put the pack down on the ground so it doesn't get wet, how to, quickly pull the rain pants on. So all of those things, they leave us a better hiker. Our confidence grows when we've hiked in the rain. And so when we come along to a multi-day hike, we don't have that, oh, looking out the window, it's raining today. I'm not sure, do we go, do we not go? We would only not go if it's unsafe. But we, and we would always take our rain gear, but we go, okay, no, I can do that. I've got the experience of hiking in the rain. So lots and lots of different things that hiking in the rain will teach us. So let me just check. I covered Alethea's poncho over the raincoat. So hopefully that worked for you, tucking it underneath your pack so it clips in and comes quite stylish. Christine says, how can you tell if your raincoat needs to be seasoned in the dryer? I'll just put it here. I bought my coat a couple of years ago and I'm not sure if I should have done this. It is less waterproof than I'd like and I wonder if I should have done this. Okay, so there is a product out there called Nick's Wash or Nick Wash that you buy from the camping stores or from the adventure stores, and you need to wash it in that and put it in the dryer. And those conditions would help. But you will know, so, you can buy the Gore-Tex equivalent raincoats are the ones we suggest. And, you can spend a lot or you can spend a little, but you can get some great ones. And it doesn't, price isn't always an indicator. It's the materials and the construction of the raincoat. So there are some great brands out there, but know that the friction points of when you put your pack on your shoulders and when you put your buckle on here, where water is going to eventually permeate over time is going to be where those pressure points are. So you can have a Gore-Tex, but a lighter weight raincoat than that other brand of Gore-Tex. But the pressure points are probably going to show sooner or later. The other thing is construction of it. So with shoes and boots, we know that the glue will perish over time, whether they're your hiking shoes or boots or whether they are your dress shoes. Glue will deteriorate over time. The same is true with the Gore-Tex material. And I do remember one hike about 11 years ago, we're in, again, Tasmania, and one of the girls said, I just pulled out my coat from when I lived in England and it's about 30 years old. And guess what? I am so totally wet. It has leaked entirely through. And she hadn't worn it for a couple of years, but it was one that was from such a long time ago. Very good brand, but it does perish over time. So with your raincoat, never leave it rolled up. Always let it out to breathe. Never leave it in the back of your car. Same with your shoes. Always let them dry out. Always let them breathe. You can leave it rolled up in your pack if you're on a multi-day hike for the course of a week. But when you're at home, make sure that raincoat is out and hanging up and dry when you've put it up. And you'll see when you wear a raincoat that if the pressure point is there and it's really, really heavy rain, you'll see where it's the slowest to dry. A good raincoat that's still waterproof will have that beading on it. So Christine, if you hang that coat on the clothesline and spray it even with a spray water bottle quite a bit, if the beading starts to appear on the raincoat, then that means it's generally pretty waterproof. How to test it if you don't go hiking in the rain? Lots of ways, but get in the shower or get someone to hose you. That could be a bit mean, but both of those ways will soon tell you. But make sure you distinguish between sweating and leaking, because if you're putting it on certainly in conditions where I live, you'll sweat pretty quickly. Is that just perspiration? Is it water dripping through from your hiking poles, or have you got the arms undone and water might be dripping in through there, especially if you accidentally lift your pole up here to talk about something and then the water comes and drips all the way in or drips in through the zip bit there, and you can tend to feel it. Is your raincoat long enough so that it covers your bottom? You don't set, especially when you put your pack on, you want it to go be longer than your pack, so below your bottom, probably mid-thigh, so that the water drips off your pack and then drips off the raincoat as well, not drips off your pack and down into your undies, which is not very pleasant at all. So, the things that I see and the things that we learn from hiking in the rain are that fair weather hiking is comfortable, but hiking in the rain is really honest. It will reveal more about you as a hiker than hiking in fair weather conditions all the time. You discover what you're made of when hiking in the wet. So, it's about 45 minutes in and you'll figure out, am I enjoying this? Am I not? Why am I not enjoying it? It's raining. Says a whole lot, right? Rain teaches you to regulate your internal state, not the external conditions. So you're a hiker, rain, hail, or shine. Generally, we don't go out in hail, but sometimes you might get caught in it. Your gear will reveal itself in the rain more than any other condition. So really, I encourage you, if it's rainy and it's safe to do so, get out and go hiking. We had a great time today, Sharon, didn't we? The trail will look completely different in the rain, and that is a beautiful, beautiful experience. So it is worth seeing. Colours and smells and sounds really come alive. The group dynamics change in the rain. Everyone is there more so looking out for each other, and the confidence carryover is real. What you learn about yourself hiking in the rain, about your gear, about your reaction to things, your skill set, all of those will build you to be a stronger hiker for the next time that you go out hiking, whether that's in fair weather conditions or rainy conditions, snow, or somewhere in between. So that is all I have to share today. I hope you've enjoyed those tips about hiking in the rain. If you're watching live or on the replay and you'd love to add your own little story, please go ahead and do so, because it really does help someone else out on adventure as well. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back again next week. See you then.